How fast is this little guy? He's pretty fast. I just fed him a couple days ago too, and he's still super food aggressive. I bet he'll try to outsmart me here. I should probably move my hands back a little bit. See how high he'll go for it. This is actually one of the fuzzies that I bred. Ooh. Then he coils up and realizes that it's dead, and it'll go to town on it. It's gonna have to rethink what it's doing right now because it's certainly not approaching it from the head, but it will figure it out that it needs to change the angle a bit. It's not a bad thing actually to kind of tease them the way I was doing. That actually is a good thing. It gives them a sense of kind of that enrichment, they call it. And that's actually an important part of keeping the snake, to keep them really kind of mentally, I mean, as much mental as in there. It's a pretty small head, as you can tell, so I don't know how much is really in there, but it does seem important to do that, to give them that kind of, that hunting, bring out that hunting instinct. But yeah, it's slowly going to, see, it worked its way, it found the head. And that's another interesting aspect of feeding them, is just watching them kind of work their way around it. This was the first time that I've let it really coil. Normally it just kind of does a quick little strike onto the top of the head, because I laid the head right in front of the snake's head. And then it just sort of starts putting its mouth around it. But I realized that I do need to start getting it to become a little more aggressive. Not so much, it won't be aggressive towards people. I just need to give it that stimulation so that it's pursuing something and gets to have that kind of, that feeling. So I'm actually going to start feeding 2 a week. I'm going to have, I noticed the mom is pregnant again, and I'm going to have plenty of fuzzies in about another month to feed them at 2 a day. Well, not 2 a day, but 2 a week. And that will actually put some size on them a little faster as well. They'll probably, I wouldn't say double, it won't be doubly as fast as their growth, but it's certainly, the more you feed, the faster they do grow. Although there is a balance that you have to keep in mind, and that is you don't want to fatten the snake. So it's going to be more about growth from length. So I'm going to be looking at its length, and more than anything, if it starts to get kind of wide and not really growing outwards, then I know I've got a real problem. So, and fatty snakes, that's a very serious issue. Snakes don't carry fat like a human would, where we kind of put it on our sides and our belly, and they tend to, the fat builds up very quickly on the organs themselves, or in the organs themselves. And that's where burning fat for a reptile is very dangerous. So it's something that I have to be cognizant about and make sure that I don't, let the snake get fat. So not feeding for a week or 2 is not a bad thing at all. It can actually be a very healthy thing for reptiles. Now, it depends on the reptile. Like I've got White's tree frogs that I felt were getting a little plump, so I've toned their food down quite a bit. And that's just something you have to keep looking for all the time, just to kind of judge whether you're feeding too much or too little. So as you can see, that was didn't take very long. That was a pretty good sized mouse. It was that's what you call a fuzzy. And like I said, it's one that I actually bred. And as I mentioned before, the mother is actually has another round of babies coming. I saw this morning that all week long I've been noticing a little bit of chubbiness on her. Today it was very obvious that she's probably got a litter of 9 to 10 babies inside of her. So I would imagine maybe in the next 2 or 3 days we should have a bunch of pinkies. And pinkies are too small at this point. They'd be fine, but I have to feed like 4 of them at a time. So there's no reason to do that. So I'll wait for them. About 14 days, they'll get to be big enough fuzzies that they're ready to be euthanized. And at that point, I will do what's necessary, which is basically a carbon CO2, use CO2 basically to euthanize them. They fall asleep in about 10 seconds, and then it takes a course of about 20 minutes for full asphyxiation to happen. But the main thing is that they fall asleep very quickly, and the rest of the time is just basically being passed out and slowly losing oxygen. So they're not conscious. They may be having like mice-like dreams. I don't know what a mouse would dream about, but they probably are kind of in like a dream state. But there's such a lack of oxygen so quickly that they really just fall asleep. So anyways, the snake really wants some water right now. This is generally the time where I will just pick it up once. After they've eaten, you need to leave them alone for about 24 hours. So this one is a little finicky. Drop it right in the water though. Put this thing back at the home. And make sure everything is secure. That's the most important part of this whole feeding process, is securing all the pins. These little guys are very good escape artists, so you need to make sure that every possible way that it could escape has been taken care of, because they will find it. So anyways, that was a feeding. Just thought I'd share that.